Hello, friends. Imagine it's a beautiful Saturday morning in suburban Pennsylvania. You're out in the driveway, washing the car, maybe thinking about the grandkids coming over for a cookout later this afternoon. You go to reach for the hose, and you feel that familiar tight pinch around your waistline. You chuckle to yourself, thinking, I really need to cut back on the potato salad, or it's just a little extra insulation for the winter. We all do it, don't we? We treat those extra 10 or 20 pounds like a harmless backpack we're carrying around. But friends, what if I told you that this completely normal habit is actually a hidden ticking time bomb in your body? A bomb that could strip away your independence and land you in a nursing home faster than you can imagine? I am not trying to scare you, but I need you to understand the biology of what is happening under your skin right now. You see, doctors used to think fat was just passive storage, like an old attic where you keep holiday decorations. We were wrong.
Dead wrong.
That belly fat isn't sitting there quietly. It is a living, breathing, toxic organ. Think of it like a chemical plant that never shuts down, pumping out a thick, sludge-like flood of inflammatory chemicals called cytokines directly into your bloodstream. It's like a rusty V8 engine leaking oil into a pristine lake. Let me break it down for you in slow motion. When those toxic cytokines are released, they act like tiny shards of glass, scraping the delicate inner lining of your arteries. Your body tries to fix it by sending in cholesterol, but that just creates a sticky yellow gunk, clogging your plumbing like grease down a kitchen sink. This sludge thickens your blood until it is like pouring cold maple syrup through a straw. Take Bob, a retired high school coach from Columbus, Ohio. Bob loved his Friday night football and his burgers. He thought his spare tire was just a badge of a life well lived. But inside, that toxic fat was silently corroding his arteries. One morning, while reaching for the newspaper, the ticking bomb went off. The crushing chest pain, the sirens, the frantic look in his wife's eyes. It was not just a health scare, it was a financial nightmare. 1 week in the ICU nearly wiped out the 401k they'd spent 40 years building. The doctor told Bob he was one step away from a wheelchair, a managed care facility, and the humiliating reality of relying on his kids to wipe his mouth. In today's video, I'm going to blow the whistle on this hidden danger. There is a lot of life-saving information today, so please stick with me until the very end. Before we dive into the dark truth, if you truly care about your health and maintaining your independence for years to come, please hit that subscribe button down below and turn on the notification bell. And if you find today's video helpful, type the words vibrant and free in the comments section below to support our community. Friends, listen to me closely, because what I'm about to tell you is going to change the way you look in the mirror every single morning for the rest of your life. For decades, we have been told a dangerous, oversimplified lie. We've been told that those extra 10, 20, or 50 pounds around our midsection are just passive storage. We call it a spare tire or a beer belly, or maybe just a little bit of insulation against the cold. We treat it like a suitcase we're carrying around heavy, sure, and maybe it makes us move a little slower, but ultimately harmless. But I am here to tell you, with the full weight of medical science behind me, that your fat is not a suitcase. It is not passive. It is not just sitting there. Listen to me. That fat is a living, breathing, hostile organ. It is a toxic factory that has set up shop inside your abdomen, and right now, as you sit there watching this, it is flooding your bloodstream with a chemical cocktail that is quite literally poisoning your heart, your brain, and your very future. I'm not fear-mongering, friends. I'm trying to save your independence. Because if you don't realize that your belly fat is an active enemy, you're a ticking time bomb, and the explosion won't just take your health, it will take your 401k, your home, and your dignity. Does this sound familiar? Let's talk about Mike. Mike is a 45-year-old construction foreman from Columbus, Ohio. Now, Mike is a man's man. He spent his life on job sites, building the American dream with his own two hands. He's the guy who mows his own lawn every Sunday, loves a good backyard BBQ, and never misses a Buckeyes game on Saturday afternoon. Mike always had what he called a solid frame. He'd grab a couple of double cheeseburgers and a large fry for lunch because he needed the fuel for his physical labor. At night, he'd sit in his recliner with a cold beer and a hearty steak and potatoes dinner his wife Sarah made. He saw his belly as a badge of honor, a sign of a life well lived. He thought, as long as I can still climb a ladder and put in a 10-hour shift, I'm fine. But one humid Tuesday morning last July, the lie caught up with him. Mike was halfway up a heavy-duty extension ladder at a new housing development. Suddenly, he felt a sensation he had never known before. It wasn't a sharp pain, it was a crushing weight. It felt like an invisible semi-truck was parking directly on his chest. His breath caught in his throat. He tried to suck in air, but his lungs felt like they were filled with wet concrete. His vision began to blur at the edges, turning into a terrifying dark tunnel. He barely made it down that ladder before collapsing into the dirt. As his crew scrambled to call 911, Mike wasn't just thinking about his life. Listen to this, because I know you felt this same shadow hanging over you. As the sirens wailed in the distance, Mike was gripped by a cold, paralyzing panic about the money. He thought about the $5,000 deductible on his health insurance. He thought about the mortgage on their house in Columbus. He thought, if I can't get back on that ladder, we lose everything. He saw his daughter's college tuition vanishing. He saw himself ending up in one of those cold, sterile nursing homes, relying on a stranger to wipe his mouth and change his clothes, while his family's savings were drained to zero by medical bills. When Mike got to the cardiac unit, he expected the doctor to talk about his diet or his lack of cardio. But the cardiologist looked him dead in the eye and said something that changed Mike forever. He said, "Mike, your heart didn't just fail. It was assassinated by your own body fat." Let's go into slow motion for a second, because you need to see what was actually happening inside Mike's body and what might be happening inside yours right now. Imagine the visceral fat deep inside your belly, wrapped around your liver and your kidneys. Under a microscope, these fat cells aren't just round bubbles. In someone like Mike, those cells are swollen to the bursting point. They are angry. They are screaming. When a fat cell gets too large, it loses its ability to function. It begins to suffocate. And when it suffocates, it sends out a chemical distress signal. These signals are called inflammatory cytokines. I want you to picture these cytokines like millions of tiny microscopic shards of glass being dumped directly into Mike's bloodstream. They aren't just floating there, they are aggressive. Think about your arteries like the pristine copper plumbing in a brand new American home. When Mike's toxic fat organs started pumping out a chemical called C-reactive protein, or CRP, and another one called interleukin-6, it was like pouring acid into those pipes. Step by step, these chemicals began to scrape and scar the delicate inner lining of Mike's heart vessels. This is the endothelium. In a healthy body, it's as smooth as silk. But in Mike's body, the chronic inflammation from his belly fat turned that silk into sandpaper. Now, here is the terrifying part. Once that lining is scarred, your blood changes. Instead of flowing like cool, clear water, it starts to thicken. It turns into a dark, heavy sludge. The cholesterol in Mike's blood, which he thought was just a number on a lab report, found those sandpaper scars and started to stick. Imagine a rusty V8 engine where the oil hasn't been changed in 20 years. The gunk builds up, layer by layer. This isn't a fast process. It's a slow-motion disaster. One day, a tiny bit of plaque sticks. The next day, more. The inflammation from the fat keeps the fire burning in the artery wall. The wall becomes brittle. It loses its elasticity. It can't expand when Mike climbs that ladder. And then the rust becomes so thick that the blood flow slows to a trickle. That's when the clogged pipe finally gives way. That's the moment the semi-truck parks on your chest. The doctors told Mike that his belly wasn't just extra weight. It was a toxic waste dump that was actively secreting poison into his heart, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It didn't matter how many ladders he climbed, he couldn't outwork the inflammation because his own biology had turned against him. Friends, I want you to hear me. If you have that softness around your middle, you're not just out of shape. You're carrying a biological insurgent that is trying to bankrupt your health. You are at risk of the same thing Mike faced, the terror of the ER, the crushing weight of the bills, and the very real possibility that you will spend your golden years in a wheelchair watching your life savings disappear into the pockets of a long-term care facility. But there is a way out. Mike didn't just go on a diet. He didn't just try to lose weight to look better in a t-shirt. He realized he had to perform a toxic waste cleanup. He had to shut down the factory. And when he changed his perspective, when he realized he was fighting an active disease-causing organ, everything changed. You can do this too. You have to stop seeing your fat as part of you and start seeing it as something that is attacking you. You have to decide, right now, that you're not going to let a toxic organ dictate whether you get to see your grandkids graduate or whether you spend your retirement in a hospital bed. Listen to me closely. Your independence is the most valuable thing you own. Don't let it be stolen by a beer belly that is actually a silent killer. We are going to talk about exactly how to deactivate that toxic factory, step by step, so you can stay vibrant, stay free, and keep your hard-earned money where it belongs with your family. Friends, listen to me closely, because what I'm about to tell you could be the difference between spending your golden years on a cruise ship or spending them in a sterile, fluorescent lit room waiting for a nurse to help you get out of bed. We have been lied to for decades. We've been told that as long as the number on the scale stays within a certain range, we're doing okay. We've been told that a little extra cushion is just part of getting older. But I'm not here to sugarcoat the truth, and I am certainly not here to fearmonger. I am here to tell you the scientific reality that your doctor might be too busy to explain in a 15-minute appointment. That fat around your midsection? It's not just a storage locker for extra calories. It is not passive. It is not dormant. Does this sound familiar? You look in the mirror and you see that your arms are still relatively thin, your legs look fine, but your waistline is starting to creep over your belt. You think I'm just skinny fat? It's no big deal. Well, I want you to meet Sarah. Sarah is a 52-year-old administrative assistant living in Sarasota, Florida. She's a wonderful woman, a retired teacher's aide who loves her community. On the weekends, you could find her at a local BBQ with her husband, or maybe out in the yard tending to her hibiscus plants. Sarah always watched her weight. She wasn't obese by the standard charts. She kept her BMI in a range that she thought was safe. But Sarah had a secret, one that she didn't even know she was keeping. She led a sedentary life, sitting behind a desk for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and that muffin top she joked about was actually a biological ticking time bomb. It happened on a Tuesday morning, right there in her office. Sarah was reaching for a file when a sharp, searing pain ripped through her abdomen. It wasn't a cramp. It wasn't indigestion. It felt like someone had taken a hot poker and shoved it under her ribs. Her vision began to blur, turning into a gray haze. Her heart started hammering against her chest like a trapped bird. She tried to call out to her manager, but the words wouldn't come. She collapsed right there on the thin office carpet. Think about the panic of that moment. Her coworkers frantically dialing 911. The sirens wailing through the streets of Sarasota. As Sarah was being lifted onto that gurney, do you know what was flashing through her mind? It wasn't her bucket list. It was her bank account. She was calculating the cost of the ambulance ride. She was wondering if her insurance would cover the ER visit. She was gripped by the terrifying thought that this was the beginning of the end, that she was about to become a burden to her children, that her hard-earned 401k was about to be drained by a hospital system that charges $10 for a single aspirin. She was terrified of the nursing home. She was terrified of losing the house she and her husband had finally paid off. When she got to the hospital, the news was a gut punch. The doctors didn't tell her she was overweight. They told her she had non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, or NAFLD, and metabolic syndrome. They told her that her body was in a state of civil war. You see, friends, just like we discussed earlier, Sarah's body fat had undergone a sinister transformation. I want you to visualize this in slow motion. Inside Sarah's abdomen, tucked deep behind her muscles and wrapped around her vital organs, was a layer of visceral fat. But this wasn't just fat. It had become a rogue endocrine organ, a toxic chemical-spewing factory that was flooding her entire system with poison. Let's look at the mechanism, step by step. Imagine a fat cell, not as a balloon, but as a high-pressure chemical vat. When you carry excess weight around your middle, those fat cells become hypertrophied. They swell up until they are stretched to their absolute breaking point. And when they get that big, they start to suffocate. They lose their blood supply. They begin to die. And as they die, they don't go quietly. They scream. They release these signaling proteins called inflammatory cytokines, specifically things like interleukin-6 and TNF-alpha. Think of these cytokines as microscopic arsonists. They pour out of that belly fat and enter your bloodstream. They aren't just floating there, they are actively searching for healthy tissue to attack. In Sarah's case, they headed straight for her liver through the portal vein. This is the superhighway of destruction. The liver is the V8 engine of your body, responsible for filtering every drop of blood and processing every nutrient. But these cytokines act like salt in a gas tank. They cause the liver cells to become inflamed and scarred. But it gets even worse. I want you to see this clearly. While those cytokines are torching the liver, they are also interfering with your insulin. You've heard of insulin. It's the key that unlocks your cells so they can eat the sugar in your blood. But when your body is flooded with these toxic chemicals from your fat, the locks on your cells get jammed. It's like someone put superglue in the keyhole. This is insulin resistance. Now, the sugar stays in your blood, turning it thick and abrasive, like liquid sandpaper. This syrup blood travels through your arteries, scraping the delicate inner lining, creating microscopic tears. And what happens then? Your body tries to patch those tears with cholesterol, building up plaque like rust inside an old lead pipe until, boom, the pipe bursts or clogs entirely. Sarah was shocked. She said, "Doctor, I'm not even that heavy." And the doctor looked her in the eyes and said, "Sarah, it doesn't matter what you look like in a swimsuit. Your internal organs are being marinated in a toxic soup of your own making." Friends, this is the reality of the American lifestyle. We sit at desks, we eat processed convenience foods, and we ignore the slow-motion disaster happening under our skin. We think we're saving money by skipping the gym or buying the cheaper sugary snacks, but we are actually signing away our future. You are one fainting spell away from a $50,000 medical bill. You are one rogue organ flare-up away from having to sell your home to pay for assisted living. I'm not telling you this to scare you. I am telling you this to empower you. Because once you understand that your fat is an active living enemy, you can start to fight back. You can shut down the factory. You can stop the arsonists from burning down your health. You can protect your 401k from the medical vultures. We are talking about your independence. We are talking about your right to grow old with dignity, to walk your grandchildren down the aisle, to stay in the home you love. Listen to me closely. Sarah's story doesn't have to be your story. You do not have to let your internal chemistry turn against you. You do not have to live in fear of the next 911 call. We are going to break down exactly how to cool that inflammation, how to unjam those cellular locks, and how to turn your body from a toxic factory back into the high-performance machine it was meant to be. We are going to reclaim your health, molecule by molecule, so you can stay vibrant, stay free, and keep your hard-earned money where it belongs, with your family. Friends, I want you to take a deep breath with me right now and listen to me very closely, because what I'm about to tell you is the difference between enjoying your golden years on a golf course or spending them in a sterile, white-walled room, watching your life savings vanish into a hospital's billing department. We've been told for decades that being a little overweight is just a natural part of aging, a spare tire, or a dad bod. We treat it like a cosmetic issue, or maybe a minor burden on our knees. But I'm here to tell you, with the full weight of medical science behind me, that is a lie. That fat sitting around your waist, it isn't just dead weight. It isn't a storage locker for extra calories. It is a living, breathing, toxic organ that has hijacked your body. It is a biological weapon, and right now it is flooding your bloodstream with a chemical fire that is melting your internal organs from the inside out.
Does this sound familiar?
You wake up, and your joints feel like they've been filled with ground glass. You're exhausted by noon, even after a full night's sleep. You tell yourself, well, I'm 60, this is just what happens. Friends, I am not fear-mongering when I tell you that those are not the sounds of aging. Those are the alarms of a body under siege. Take Robert, for example. Robert is a 60-year-old small business owner from the blistering heat of Phoenix, Arizona. Robert is a guy just like you. He worked 35 years to build a successful landscaping and construction firm. He's the guy who never missed a Saturday BBQ, loved watching the Cardinals on a Sunday afternoon, and prided himself on being the rock for his family. But Robert had that classic American belly. He joked about it, called it his retirement fund. He didn't realize that fund was actually a ticking time bomb. Robert lived the life so many of us do. High-stress, 60-hour work weeks, skipping breakfast and then grabbing a fast food burger and a giant soda between job sites because he was too busy to eat right. He thought he was fine. Sure, his feet tingled sometimes.
Sure.
He felt a bit dizzy when he stood up too fast. But he had a business to run. He had a 401k to protect. He didn't have time to be sick. Then came that Tuesday in July. It was 110 degrees on the I-17 highway. Robert was driving his heavy-duty pickup truck, heading to a client meeting that was supposed to secure his company's future for the next 5 years. Suddenly, the world changed. His vision didn't just get blurry, it started to pixelate, like a broken TV screen. Then came the neuropathy, a sensation like thousands of red-hot needles being driven into his feet and climbing up his shins. He couldn't feel the gas pedal. He couldn't feel the brake. In a moment of pure, unadulterated panic, Robert swerved, nearly clipping a sedan filled with a young family before his truck slammed into the concrete divider. As he sat there, chest heaving, the smell of burnt rubber in the air, his first thought wasn't, "Am I okay?" It was, "If I can't drive, I can't work. If I can't work, I lose the business. If I lose the business, we lose the house." The fear of medical bankruptcy hit him harder than the airbag ever could. He watched through tears as the ambulance arrived, knowing that every siren wail was another $1,000 he couldn't afford to lose. In the ICU, the doctors didn't tell Robert he needed to go on a diet. They told him he was in a metabolic crisis. They looked him in the eye and said, "Robert, your fat is attacking you." I want to break down exactly what happened to Robert, because it is happening to millions of Americans right now. We need to go into a slow-motion analysis of the physiological nightmare occurring inside your body when you cross what we call the toxic threshold. Imagine your body as a high-performance American V8 engine. Normally, your fat cells, adipocytes, are supposed to be tiny, neat little fuel tanks. When you eat, you fill the tanks. When you move, you burn the fuel. Simple, right? But in the Western lifestyle, with the chronic stress Robert faced and the pro-inflammatory foods we eat, those tanks start to overflow. Here's where it gets terrifying. When a fat cell reaches its capacity, it doesn't just stop growing. It begins to expand and stretch until the cell wall is paper thin. At this point, the blood vessels can't reach the center of the cell anymore. The fat cell starts to suffocate. It's experiencing hypoxia, a lack of oxygen. And when a cell suffocates, it panics. It sends out a frantic chemical SO signal to your immune system. Your body responds by sending in white blood cells, the infantry of your immune system. But there's no virus to fight. There's no bacteria. There's just this massive, suffocating blob of fat. The white blood cells get confused and frustrated, and they start doing the only thing they know how to do. They release cytokines. Listen to me closely. Cytokines like TNF-alpha and interleukin-6 are not your friends in this scenario. They are pro-inflammatory chemicals. Think of them like a corrosive acid. Now, instead of your fat being a storage tank, it is transformed into a chemical factory that is pumping this acid directly into your bloodstream 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Let's watch this acid travel through Robert's body in slow motion. First, it hits the pancreas. Your pancreas is a delicate precision instrument, the watchmaker of your endocrine system. It's trying to produce insulin to manage your blood sugar. But these toxic cytokines from Robert's belly fat start coating the insulin receptors. It's like pouring hot candle wax into the gears of a Swiss watch. The gears grind to a halt. The insulin can't work. Now, Robert's blood sugar doesn't go into his cells for energy. It stays in his blood. Think about what high blood sugar actually is. It's not just sweet blood. At a microscopic level, those sugar molecules are sharp. They have jagged edges. As they circulate through Robert's veins at high pressure, they act like tiny shards of glass. They are literally scouring the delicate inner lining of his blood vessels. This is why his vision blurred. The glass was shredding the tiny hair-thin capillaries in his retinas. This is why his feet went numb. The glass was slicing through the protective sheathing of his nerves. But it gets worse. The toxic organ, that belly fat, then starts sending signals to the kidneys. Your kidneys are the master filters of your body. They are supposed to keep your blood clean. But the cytokines cause the kidneys to become inflamed and leaky. Robert's kidneys began to fail because they were being bombarded by the very fat he thought was harmless. The doctor told Robert that his adipose tissue had reached a toxic threshold. His fat had become a parasitic entity. It was no longer part of him, it was living off of him, sabotaging his metabolic pathways and actively trying to shut down his vital organs. It was a biological weapon that he had been carrying around, thinking it was just age. Friends, Robert sat in that hospital bed and realized that if he didn't act, he wasn't just going to be heavy. He was going to be an invalid. He was looking at a future of dialysis machines 3 days a week, 4 hours a day, hooked up to a pump because his toxic organ had murdered his kidneys. He was looking at a wheelchair because the glass in his blood had severed the communication to his legs. He was looking at the very real possibility of his wife having to sell their home just to pay for the specialized nursing care he would require. Do you see the stakes here? This isn't about vanity. This isn't about looking good in a swimsuit at the Florida beaches. This is about national security for your own body. This is about preventing a total systemic collapse that will drain your bank account and leave you a prisoner in your own skin. When Robert's doctor showed him the scans, Robert saw the truth. He saw the visceral fat, that deep yellow, oily gunk, strangling his liver, squeezing his heart, and choking his intestines. It looked like an invasive vine growing over a beautiful house, slowly pulling the bricks apart until the whole structure collapses. I am not telling you this to scare you. I am telling you this because you need to understand the mechanism if you want to stop the destruction. You cannot exercise your way out of a toxic organ. You have to deactivate it. You have to signal to your body that the war is over so it stops producing those corrosive cytokines. You have to shut down the chemical factory before it finishes the job. Does this sound like the path you're on? Are you tired of feeling like a rusty V8 that can barely get out of the driveway? Are you terrified that one day you'll be driving or playing with your grandkids and the pixelation will start? The pins and needles will begin? Robert made a choice in that ICU bed. He realized that reducing his fat wasn't a goal. It was a rescue mission. He had to disarm the weapon. And when we come back, I'm going to show you exactly how he did it and how you can do it too. We are going to talk about the life-saving rules to flip the switch from toxic storage to healing mode. Because you worked too hard for that retirement to let a parasitic organ take it away from you. You earned your freedom. You earned your independence. And I'm going to help you keep it. Stick with me, because we are about to reclaim your health, molecule by molecule, and ensure that your hard-earned money stays exactly where it belongs with you and your family. Listen to me closely, because the next 5 minutes could save your life. Friends, listen to me closely, because we just saw what happened to Robert in Phoenix. He wasn't just getting older. He wasn't just slowing down. He had a biological weapon strapped to his midsection that was actively, aggressively attacking his internal organs every single second of the day. And if you're sitting there right now thinking, well, I've got a few extra pounds, but my blood pressure is okay for now, I need you to wake up before the ambulance is idling in your driveway. Does this sound familiar? You look in the mirror and see that spare tire, and you think it's just a storage locker for last night's dinner. You think it's passive? You think it's just sitting there? But the science tells us something much more terrifying. That fat is an endocrine organ. It is a chemical factory. And right now it is pumping out a toxic sludge of inflammatory cytokines, IL-6, TNF, alpha, and C-reactive protein, directly into your bloodstream. I want you to imagine your blood, which should be like a clear, flowing mountain stream turning into thick, stagnant swamp water. This sludge is scraping against the delicate inner lining of your arteries, creating tiny microscopic tears. Your body tries to patch those tears with cholesterol, and that is how the ticking time bomb of a stroke or a heart attack begins. You don't want to be like Mike from Columbus, feeling that crushing weight on your chest while you're just trying to provide for your family. You don't want to see your 401k vanish into a black hole of hospital deductibles and long-term care costs, because you waited too long to act. But here's the good news. I'm not here to sell you a $1,000 gym membership or a box of expensive magic pills. We are going to shut down that toxic organ today, for free, using the biology your Creator gave you. Our first life-saving rule is what I call the metabolic reset flush. You can do this tomorrow morning in your own bathroom for $0. Listen to me. Most of the fat we carry is white fat, the toxic storage kind. But we also have brown fat, which is like a furnace. When you activate brown fat, it reaches out and literally sucks the white fat out of your system to burn it for heat. Here is exactly how you do it. At the end of your morning shower, I want you to turn the handle all the way to cold. Just for 30 seconds. I know it sounds miserable, but listen to what happens inside your body in slow motion. The moment that cold water hits your skin, your nervous system sends a high-voltage electrical signal to your brain. Your heart rate spikes for a moment, and your body enters a state of thermogenesis. Your brown fat cells, located around your neck and shoulders, start vibrating at a microscopic level. They are looking for fuel to keep your core temperature from dropping. They start grabbing those toxic inflammatory molecules from your belly fat and incinerating them. You're effectively turning on a vacuum cleaner that sucks the poison out of your toxic organ. Do this for 30 seconds every day, and you're telling that fat you're no longer in charge. Now, let's talk about the second rule, and this is the one that will save your bank account as much as your heart. We are going to implement the 12-hour chemical silence. Friends, Every time you put even a single cracker or a grape in your mouth, your pancreas screams. It floods your body with insulin. And insulin is the lock and key for fat storage. As long as insulin is in your blood, that toxic organ is growing and it is protected from being burned. I want you to pick a time, let's say 7 p.m. After 7 p.m., the kitchen is closed. No snacks, no just one bite of leftovers, nothing but water. Why? Because when you go 12 hours without eating, from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., something miraculous happens. Around hour 8, your insulin levels finally drop to near zero. Your body looks around and realizes the external fuel is gone. It begins a process called autophagy. Think of this like a biological garbage truck roaming through your veins. It starts picking up the inflammatory cytokines, the broken proteins, and the cellular debris that cause dementia and heart disease. In this silent window, your body finally has the chance to perform maintenance on the V8 engine, that is your heart. You aren't just losing weight, you're cleaning the toxic waste out of your system so you don't end up in a nursing home, relying on a stranger to help you get out of bed. The third rule is the most important one for those of you who feel like your joints are rusting out like an old truck in a field. I call this the anti-inflammatory muscle contract. You don't need to run a marathon. In fact, if you're carrying that toxic organ around your middle, running might actually hurt you more than help you. Instead, I want you to use your muscles as a pharmacy. When you contract a large muscle, like your thighs or your glutes, those muscles release something called myokines. Doctors call these hope molecules. These myokines are the direct biological antidote to the poison coming out of your fat. Here's the rule. After every meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I want you to do just 10 minutes of light movement. You can pace around your living room while the news is on or walk to the end of the driveway and back. See it in slow motion as your leg muscles stretch and contract. They are literally squeezing medicine into your blood. This medicine travels straight to your belly fat and tells those inflammatory cells to shut down. It's like pouring water on a fire. If you do this for 10 minutes after you eat, you prevent the massive blood sugar spike that turns into new toxic fat. You're protecting your kidneys. You're protecting your eyes from the neuropathy that almost cost Robert his life on that highway in Phoenix. And you're doing it all without spending a single dime at a pharmacy. Finally, we have to talk about the hydration flush. Many of you are walking around chronically dehydrated, and that makes your blood even thicker and more toxic. I want you to drink 16 ounces of water. That's just 2 cups. The very moment you wake up. Before the coffee, before the tea, before the juice. Think about your body like a house that hasn't had the plumbing flushed in years. Overnight, while you sleep, your body is working hard to process those toxins, but it needs water to move them out through your kidneys. If you don't hydrate first thing in the morning, those toxins just recirculate. They go right back into that toxic fat organ and settle in. By drinking that water, you are thinning your blood, making it easier for your heart to pump, and literally washing the ash from the metabolic fire out of your system. Friends, please listen to me. This isn't about fitting into a smaller pair of jeans for a high school reunion. This is about survival. This is about making sure you're there to see your grandkids graduate. This is about making sure you don't spend your golden years in a hospital bed watching your life savings evaporate into a sea of medical bills because you let a toxic organ take over your body. You have the power to shut down the inflammation. You have the power to reclaim your health. Start tomorrow morning. 30 seconds of cold water, 12 hours of silence for your digestive system, 10 minutes of movement after you eat, and a big glass of water when you wake up. It's free, it's simple, and it works. Don't let your fat be a ticking time bomb. Diffuse it today. Your family is counting on you. I know you can do this. I'll see you in the next video. All right, friends, that's all for today's topic. Before we go, let's do a quick recap of the most important life-saving takeaways. Please etch these into your memory. Number 1. Stop viewing body fat as just extra weight. It is an active, aggressive organ that produces inflammation every single second of the day. Number 2. Realize that this chronic inflammation is the silent thief that steals your mobility and drains your bank account through endless medical bills. And number 3. The moment you start reducing that visceral fat, you aren't just looking better in the mirror. You are literally shutting down a toxic chemical factory inside your chest. Your future independence depends on the actions you take right now. My friends, true health isn't an unreachable goal. It's hidden in the tiny choices we make every single day. I hope today's guide truly hits home for you. If you found this helpful, please don't be stingy. Give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and share this video with your family and friends. Your single share might literally save a life and keep a family whole. I'll see you in the next video.